Tokyo, the capital of Japan, is often talked about as the world's largest city. According to UN statistics, the Tokyo metropolitan area has been the world's #1 megacity for over 70 years, ever since it surpassed New York in 1955. What's more, in the Global Power City Index, which measures various indicators like economic power, R&D, and cultural influence, Tokyo has been ranked third for 9 consecutive years, constantly competing for the top spot with London and New York. This means Tokyo isn't just a city with a huge population. It's one of the central hubs driving the global economy and culture. Currently, around 37 million people live in the Tokyo metropolitan area, and its GDP is so massive it's said to be comparable to the entire country of Canada. The lively cityscape you imagine, like the Shibuya Scramble, the skyscrapers of Shinjuku, or the electronics districts of Akihabara, is truly a symbol of this giant city that never sleeps. But here's a question that comes to mind. For a massive, vibrant city like Tokyo, why doesn't it have a clear central area that could be called downtown? Many large cities have a heart, a place you could call the central boss, like the city in London or Manhattan in New York. But Tokyo doesn't have that. Instead, it has numerous sub-centers like Shinjuku, Shibuya, Ikebukuro, and Ginza, each with its own distinct identity. Even as a Japanese person who's visited Tokyo many times, if someone asks me, "Where's the center of Tokyo?" I can't give a clear answer like, "This place right here," and I don't think many other Japanese people can either. That's how much the function and liveliness of different areas within Tokyo vary, even for us locals. However, Tokyo didn't choose to be downtownless from the start. Why did Tokyo choose to disperse rather than concentrate its power in one place? Let's explore the secret behind this mysterious urban structure together.
When you hear downtown, what comes to mind? Probably a bustling city center full of skyscrapers, like Manhattan in New York or the Loop in Chicago. That's not wrong. However, in urban planning terms, downtown means more than just a busy place. The concept originated in early 19th century New York and refers to the city's heart, where commercial, business, and government functions have historically been concentrated in one place. In Europe, places like the City of London or the historical center of Paris are perfect examples. They function as a single dominant hub that drives the city's economy, culture, and politics. With the birth of this downtown concept and the development of suburbs via railways and streetcars, a clear division of labor emerged in the United States. The suburbs were for living, while downtown was for working, shopping, and gathering. In short, a downtown is a single center where a city's functions are overwhelmingly concentrated. This is the starting point for Tokyo's uniqueness. Tokyo does have business and commercial centers like Marunouchi and Ginza, but they don't monopolize the entire city's functionality like Manhattan does in New York. Why didn't Tokyo end up with a single central hub? The answer is hidden in its history.
Historically, the development of Japanese cities has been fundamentally different from that of Western cities. Many European cities developed around a single powerful center, such as a castle, a cathedral, or a city hall. The typical pattern was for all functions to converge at this one point, with the city radiating outwards from there. For example, London still has the City of London, a historical center dating back to ancient times, which serves as the financial and administrative hub for the entire city. Paris, too, has its streets radiating concentrically from its center on Ile de la Cité, home to Notre Dame Cathedral and the Louvre Museum. Even ancient Roman cities had everything, politics, economy, and religion concentrated around the Roman Forum. But Edo, the old name for Tokyo, was different from the start. Edo's urban structure was built on a model of distributed functions. The political center was Edo Castle, where the Tokugawa shogun resided, and samurai residences were clustered around it. Meanwhile, a bit further from the castle along the water was the Shitamachi, literally low city, where merchants lived and conducted business. This was the economic and cultural heart of the city, lined with bustling markets and theaters. In other words, from the beginning, Edo had 2 distinct cores, a political center and a commercial center. This dual structure had a huge impact on Tokyo's later development. When Edo was renamed Tokyo and began to modernize during the Meiji period, this multipolar, decentralized DNA was passed on. A unique Tokyo model had already been established, where multiple hubs developed independently instead of everything converging on a single powerful center. For instance, the Marunouchi area in front of Tokyo Station was adjacent to the government district and became a business hub with office buildings, primarily for the Mitsubishi Zaibatsu, a family-controlled business conglomerate. It formed the prototype of the modern Central Business District, CBD, with headquarters of banks and trading companies concentrated there. At the same time, stations like Shinjuku and Shibuya were already playing crucial roles as terminals for private railways, bringing people from the suburbs into the city. By the 1930s, this functionally decentralized model had helped Tokyo grow to become the world's second largest city after New York, solidifying its place among the world's three great cities, alongside London and New York.
However, as Tokyo was steadily growing into a massive city, a turning point in its history occurred: Japan's defeat in World War II. After the war, much of Tokyo was reduced to rubble by air raids. This tragic situation also presented an unprecedented opportunity. Urban planners dreamed of creating a single-centered, modern city modeled after Western metropolises like New York and London. Their grand vision included a plan to lay out 100-meter-wide avenues throughout the city center, comparable to Paris's Champs-Élysées. The goal was to create an American-style downtown with concentrated functions and skyscrapers. This ambitious plan, however, was blocked by harsh reality. The first major hurdle was severe financial hardship. The war-weary Japanese government simply didn't have the funds to move forward with such a large-scale project. As a result, the initial budget was drastically cut, forcing a fundamental revision of the plan. Another, even bigger problem stood in the way: complex land ownership. The city was destroyed, but land ownership remained. It was almost impossible to ask thousands of citizens and businesses to give up their small plots of land for one massive public project. Eviction negotiations were difficult and met strong resistance from people desperate to rebuild their lives. Unlike American cities where large blocks of land make it easy for municipalities or large corporations to develop, Japan's land was highly fragmented. Due to both economic hardship and social resistance, the grand plan to create a single-centered Tokyo was abandoned. As a result, the city was rebuilt not through planned redevelopment, but by each district recovering and rebuilding autonomously. This failure of the plan is the most decisive reason why Tokyo never formed a single downtown. It wasn't an accident. It was an inevitability born from historical constraints and practical limitations.
In the midst of the failed Tokyo downtown plan, a policy was intentionally introduced in the 1960s to strengthen Tokyo's multi-center structure. At that time, Tokyo was facing problems like traffic congestion and soaring land prices due to the influx of people from rural areas and the excessive concentration of political, economic, and media functions in the city center. There was also a severe housing shortage and a spread of slum-like areas. There was a growing sense of crisis that the city's functions could become paralyzed. These are common challenges for any rapidly developing country. To alleviate the burden on the city center and make the entire city more efficient, the Tokyo metropolitan government designated specific areas as sub-centers. Shinjuku, Shibuya, and Ikebukuro were selected as these sub-centers. These areas aren't just entertainment districts. They were systematically developed to take on crucial urban functions alongside the main city center. First, there's Shinjuku, which is the closest thing to the post-war downtown plan. It's a massive office district with a cluster of skyscrapers, effectively decentralizing the business functions of the city. When you visit Shinjuku Station, you can see these high-rises standing tall like a concrete jungle. Then, Shibuya took on the role of a cultural and commercial hub, concentrating youth culture and the IT industry. Ikebukuro developed into a center for living and entertainment with large-scale commercial facilities and cultural centers. The sub-center concept was Tokyo's unique strategy to solve the problem of over-centralization. This policy allowed Tokyo to grow into a city unlike any other in the world, with not just one heart, but multiple hearts working together. There is an urban economics concept behind why Tokyo chose to decentralize its functions into multiple sub-centers instead of concentrating everything into one downtown. The benefits that arise from people and businesses clustering together in a city are known as economies of agglomeration. For example, when offices are concentrated in a city center, business transactions and information exchange can happen more efficiently. It's like a factory where all the parts are close by, making work run smoothly. However, agglomeration also comes with downsides, which are called diseconomies of agglomeration. What happens when too many people gather in one place? First, it takes more time to travel due to crowded trains and roads. Second, prime real estate in the city center becomes unaffordably expensive, and land and rent prices skyrocket, leaving nowhere for people to live. Pollution and garbage issues also become serious. These problems actually decrease a city's efficiency. Many Western cities have dealt with these diseconomies of agglomeration by redeveloping their downtown areas and improving transportation networks. For example, in New York, these issues became frequent as its population and businesses rapidly grew in the early 20th century, prompting companies to move to places like New Jersey and Long Island to cope. Tokyo, on the other hand, took a different approach. Having experienced the failure of its post-war Reconstruction plan, it learned firsthand about the risks of over-centralization. Tokyo made a strategic choice to intentionally decentralize its functions to avoid the diseconomies of agglomeration. The sub-centers like Shinjuku, Shibuya, and Ikebukuro each function as a smaller heart, distributing the excessive burden on the central city. This is like placing multiple smaller power plants to distribute risk, instead of relying on one gigantic one. This strategy also created a unique advantage for Tokyo. It helps mitigate the risk of natural disasters like earthquakes. This logic of dispersion is one of the main reasons Tokyo's multi-center structure has been maintained and developed.
One of the biggest reasons Tokyo doesn't have a single downtown today is its extensive rail network. While many Western cities developed around car culture, Tokyo's urban structure was built on its railways. Tokyo's city layout is based on a circular line, like the Yamanote line, with radial lines extending out to the suburbs. This complex and dense network is what physically enabled Tokyo's multi-center structure. I'm sure you've been overwhelmed by Tokyo's rail map when you visited. I know I was when I first saw it. I was like, is this place crazy? The major terminal stations on each line are more than just transfer points. Each one acts as a powerful, independent hub that attracts people, with commercial facilities, offices, and entertainment venues clustered around them. The sub-centers of Shinjuku, Shibuya, and Ikebukuro all developed around these major stations. The way cities in Japan grow around their train stations is a uniquely Japanese pattern. The data clearly supports this fact. In the greater Tokyo area, about 50% of commuters use the train, which is roughly 3 times more than in New York and twice as much as in London. This high reliance on rail means that each terminal station, like Shinjuku or Shibuya, can function as a mini-city that fulfills people's needs without them having to go all the way to the central city, like where Tokyo Station is located. Essentially, Tokyo's rail network became the infrastructure that physically realized the logic of dispersion to avoid over-centralization in one downtown area.
The fact that Tokyo doesn't have a single downtown makes its uniqueness clearer when compared to other major global cities. Most major cities have pursued a single polar concentration model where functions are gathered into one central core. New York's Manhattan is the ultimate example of this model. The financial, business, media, and cultural centers are all condensed onto one island, and its powerful presence shapes the identity of the entire city. London is similar, where the historical financial district known as the City of London continues to be the city's main heart to this day. In contrast, Tokyo has developed with the opposite model, multipolar dispersion. Instead of concentrating everything in one center, multiple hubs have grown independently and work together to support the massive metropolitan area. This model has created several advantages, like avoiding extreme congestion in the city center, dispersing land prices, and reducing the burden of commuting. It also makes sense from a geographical perspective, as it helps distribute the risk of disasters like earthquakes. Tokyo's urban structure is a unique and unparalleled form of urban evolution, born from a combination of historical constraints and strategic decisions.
Okay, so after watching this video, the answer to why Tokyo doesn't have a downtown should be clear. It's not due to a single cause, but a complex mix of history, chance, and intentional choices. In short, the reason Tokyo lacks a downtown can be boiled down to two main points. First, there's the historical and political background that prevented a single boss from emerging. The city's DNA of dispersed political and commercial functions dating back to the Edo period, plus the post-war attempt to build a single center like those in the West, failed due to financial troubles and land ownership issues. The failure of this plan was what ultimately defined Tokyo's multi-center structure. Second, there's the strategic functional dispersion that leveraged the railway network. Unlike cities that were built for cars, Tokyo's urban structure is based on its railways. This allowed major terminal stations to develop as independent subcenters, which helped the city avoid the diseconomies of agglomeration that over-centralization would have caused. This was a strategic move that balanced both urban efficiency and risk dispersion. This unique structure in Tokyo isn't just a flaw. It leads to preparedness for disaster risks by dispersing the huge urban functions. Additionally, each subcenter, like Shinjuku, Shibuya, Ikebukuro, and Akihabara, has its own unique culture and identity, which creates diversity and vitality throughout the city. Instead of having one downtown, Tokyo has countless charming centers, which makes it one of the most dynamic cities in the world.